I'm Red Terry. I live on top of Bent Mountain. I'm an old lady from a tree. And I don't want to be too close to Miss Davenport because when the lightning strikes her, I don't want to be included. I thought that you people were here to protect human life and our water. And I don't understand why we're still having this fight. When they asked for pipeline builders, everybody turned the job down because it could not be done through the Blue Ridge Mountains. But Precision took that job, and we know that most everything Precision has done has failed. We're going up 80 to 85% grades. That's on the backside of my house. That's a 1.5 to 2.5 mile kill zone when this pipeline goes. That's my entire family, all of my neighbors, and the firefighters have been told, you just keep people from going in because nobody can be saved. I don't understand why we're still talking about this because this should have never happened. And we don't have an agency to take care of human life. Y'all are it. Y'all are the only ones that can stop these greedy people, I have to watch my language, from taking over our lands, our water, and our lives. Understand the DEQ has been told to let this pipeline through. I also know it's going to create 34 jobs when it's done. But the cancer rate should go up. The burn unit should have a lot of customers, and our funeral homes, if they can find us, will have a lot of business. So I'm asking you to please do your job and keep these people, these greedy people, from destroying our lives. Please. You know, we have reduced our energy need every year. And Dominion is buying their own gas so they can have permission to rape our property. You know, I would love to look at anyone else and go, you know, I want to make money. I'm taking it from you. Thank you.
My name is Cole Terry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The last meeting we talked about the 22-year, 24-hour rain plan. Nobody mentioned how much rain that is. So I looked it up, and today, in 2018, it is 3.37 inches on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So the E&S measures should be able to withstand that much rain in 24 hours. What I've just handed you guys is the last 4 years of rain recorded at the airport, unfortunately, but it's close enough to the Blue Ridge Parkway that ballpark figure for you. We've only had 2 days in the last 4 years that rain exceeded even 3 inches. So I do believe we were misled in how good these E&S measures are. And if I were to lie to my mom, I'd get my ass whooped. If I were to lie to these officers, I'd probably go to jail. But if these guys can lie to you about how good their E&S measures are, I guess they're allowed to continue building. So I feel like we should revoke permits, reevaluate, use accurate numbers, and see how that goes. Yeah, about all I got to say. Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Kathy Chandler. I live on Bent Mountain. When we were here last on the 20th for the meeting, I had a lot of hope. Mr. Hayes, I was particularly encouraged by a lot of your questions, but when it closed with the remark, well, they've done so much, we're just going to have to let them keep going. I went home and wrote myself letters to kind of diffuse the feeling of squatters' rights. And a couple other people, when I relayed the story, felt like it was more like driving along a road and finding a woman being mugged and beaten and saying, well, she's almost done for, so I'm just going to let it go by. The attempt to find questions and look at Bent Mountain and try to understand it better was very much appreciated. I wrote a FOIA request to the DEQ and sent it on September 4th, and I've never heard anything back. And I did that in an attempt to incorporate our community and help communicate what we know about our setting, because I know that none of you have been there. And the comment that DEQ people are out on the spread every day is a little bit lost because they don't communicate with any of us when we could show them where the harms have been. And yes, Ms. Davenport, the stuff does go off the row and it's not supposed to. That's the problem. So now I have my own violation. Oh, I have to say, the tweet was a sham. The tweet about construction has been halted is an absolute lie because they broke new ground. Those pipes are sitting, they're 75,000 pounds each, and no tropical storm, which got downgraded, was going to blow a pipe anywhere. They broke earth, and from my front yard, I saw the lights at 11:20 p.m. and heard the beep, beep, beep. You've been misled. And the runoff and the rain has come to my property. So in the row, I now have a creek that's clogged. And what's important about that, and I've called and I've talked to some of Mr. Jerome Brooks's DEQ wannabes, and I say that because they're not the usual guys who have seen the spread. They're contractors who tried to dissuade me and were friendlier to MVP guys in the field than they were to me. I'm the only girl out there. They know I called, but it's, hey, what's up, man, before they came to me. I had to go get them. Now, that creek is important because you've also been misled back in December listening to the 7 monitoring stations. 2 are on Bent Mountain up above the main plateau, Honeysuckle and the edge of Poor Mountain Road. However, no construction has happened anywhere near that. And the next spot is Blackwater River. Those monitoring stations that someday somebody's going to bring into play are never going to tell you anything, whereas the silt that is absolutely occluding a creek that goes across to Mill Creek in my property is about to contaminate all of Mill Creek and Tier 3 Bottom Creek in one swift move if somebody doesn't use the correct measures to try and fix the problem. Now, that won't be on an E&S plan because they never thought that might happen. And it's a direct result of the watershed from the construction at the Parkway and 221 coming into my property, Mill Creek watershed. It will never be captured with those fancy water stations that you think you have. We know the land. We know the lay of the water. And I object to Ms. Davenport presuming that she understands the pipe. Dr. Schmuzz is a physician and has a master's in public health. And to say that somebody Googled something and figured out a new answer, I object.
My name is Whitney Whiting. I think we need to stop calling this stabilization because that is not, it's construction. There's nothing different when you talk about stabilization up on these mountains. As Ms. Chandler just said, they are opening new trenches. They did that a week before this storm we were supposed to have. And I'm also really, I don't think any of us have ever been more insulted. I don't know who it was from DEQ that put out a meme on social media, on Facebook, asking and saying, admitting that you need us to do the work for you. That went out, and I've never been more insulted in my life because what do you think we've been doing this whole time? There's a meme that went out that said, we need you to volunteer to report pollution. We've been doing that. And when are you going to start paying us for that labor? I could count on both hands so many people who have been doing that work already. I was sitting in the passenger seat of a van last night as I rode back from Lumberton, North Carolina, where we had just delivered supplies to the below poverty level communities of indigenous people and people of color in Robeson County, where incidentally Dominion's ACP is also coming through to steal more of what the people there don't even have. When I thought, I'd like to ask, you all the same question that Mr. John Laurie of Buckingham County says he's been wanting to ask Dominion CEO Tom Farrell. How much is enough? But what I really want to know is right now is how much is enough for us? How much is enough from us? And how long does it take for us to stop asking? How long does it take for us to stop asking what the rules are, what DEQ can and can't do, has the authority to do or doesn't have the authority to do, what MVP can and can't do? I'm really tired of asking those questions. I wonder at which point we start asking questions like this. Mr. Paler, how much do you take home a year? I want to ask right now, is it more than 50,000? Is it more than 75,000? What was your bonus the year that ACP and MVP were announced, or the year that Dominion was allowed to dump coal ash in our rivers? What was it last year when the 401 permits for destroying our water were approved? Last week, DEQ put that call out, a rather late one, I might add, saying they literally need us to document pollution for them. That is the most tone-deaf thing I've ever heard. But we're going to keep doing it because we actually care about these communities. But now that you've admitted that you need us to do your job for you, I think you should start paying us. And I think that David Paler deserves to go home. I think he should be fired. I think your salary should be given to Linda Majors, Kathy Chandler, Lance Gallimore, Tom Burkett, the person who fell into mud chest deep when they were out there trying to document this stuff. And I think that we have the power to do that because we actually helped elect Governor Northam and Governor McAuliffe, who have allowed you to sit on this, in this agency.
Your 3 minutes are up.
So I think that we have the power to fire you, and we just did. We'd like to dock your pay.
Roberta Bondurant.
Ms. Burnt is passing that. I'm going to tell you what's in front of you so as not to waste time. What you have are maps that
Please
were...
state your name and where you live.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, sir. Roberta Bondurant, I live in Bent Mountain, Virginia, and I'm here on behalf of Preserve Bent Mountain and the Protect Our Water Heritage Rights Coalition from along the MVP. That would be inclusive of West Virginia and Virginia nonprofits. Okay, so while I'm still telling you what you have in front of you, you have a map of the watershed that runs from the Blue Ridge Parkway in Franklin County across to Montgomery County. We're talking a little bit about that, but not solely about that. I'm going to relay a couple initial points to you. These are maps that were given to Melanie Davenport and James Golden on a tour of Bent Mountain in July 2016. I believe. What you see are the steep slopes map. You also have...
Respond to Mayor for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
There were not enough copies. You have more?
A copy of the, excuse me, colorful map, watershed map.
Two or three. I think Sherry's is sharing.
Uh-huh. And do you have the steep slopes map?
Yeah, everybody else I think is copy.
Okay.
Share and I'll share.
Okay, and you have updated photographs of slopes, pipe, and what we've seen as effects since this weekend in anticipation of a hard rain of a storm. So again, I've introduced myself, and I'll get going here. I'd like to say, address a couple issues. Mr. Hayes in particular, I'd note that you asked about compliance, and Mr. Williams was here talking about compliance today. I'd say not compliance, but compliance and enforcement. Talked a little bit about that. That's like going through the eye of a needle. It's slow moving. We've seen a very slow moving process. It gives a fine against a company, potentially, but also the compliance process is written by was written by DEQ. It's a guidance document, but again, very difficult standards to surpass. And so meanwhile, these damages that you see before you are being done. And what we're asking today, specifically what we're asking, and I'm repeating this for all of us, I think you have some consensus, is a revocation of the 401, revocation of the ENS, and a reconsideration of ENS standards. We're also asking for a meeting with you all, because if y'all are inclined, I'd ask you to make a motion right now to lengthen my time to speak. I actually have been, again, I'm not a it's not my job person, but I'm committed to my community. And I've been out in the field all weekend since Monday, observing sites. I'd like to be able to relay a little bit of that to you, either now or at another time. This is a vital matter. There comes a point where you're dealing not just with technicalities and science, but you, as a board entrusted with supervision of DEQ, you have an obligation of ethics. Someone said this is a moral issue. The water, what keeps life sustained. To protect that is an issue of ethics. So we ask you to consider that. What we have here, so I've talked about compliance. You talk about a lag. Again, that's because DEQ permitted a project that it was unable to supervise. Mr. Paler said in a conversation, we call this triage. We are under triage. We are hemorrhaging sediment, you see from these photos, and so the fact that you permitted a project that is failing now, and that you can't keep up with it, that your guys are in the field daily, where are they? Who are they? We haven't seen them. We've been out there all along the line. And so you see, contra the press release on Monday, and then midweek, and the 15th, pipes on slopes, pipes in water, bare ground, from Franklin to Montgomery to Bent Mountain, and if I may have just one moment to address your question, Mr. Hayes, I'd like to address that. I certainly ask you to consider that in your work, you've seen even where the Toxins Act says something is acceptable to put in industry. I've given you a document, and I hope you all have gotten the September 13th document in follow-up to Ms. Tina Smooge's report. It indicates it was a 2015 Nova Chemicals report, and they bragged that, and I'd ask you to look in combination with Mr. Robert Cooper's testimony in Charleston and in Roanoke, that the pipe coating, he didn't use the word chalky, but it becomes impacted by time in the sun that can leach. And what the Nova Chem report bragged...
3 minutes are up. Would you wrap it up? Could you wrap it up, please?
Yes, sir. I expect it's outside your rules, but would there be any motion that I might be able to continue?
No.
Did you stop the clock when you were getting the map straight?
I didn't time her until she logged her.
Okay, well then, that's it.
I don't believe that's acceptable under the rules. And again, so in closing, I would ask for a meeting within 30 days to discuss these matters with the MVP community, a revocation of the 401, and a withdrawal of the erosion and sedimentation measures. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
I live in Montgomery County at the foot of Brush Mountain. I go up Brush Mountain, it's a mile up, mile down, at least once a week, maybe more than that. I went up there just before the hurricane on Saturday, and then we only had 3+ inches, came down afterward. I'm not paid to do DEQ's job. DEQ should not have taken this project on if they didn't have inspectors to inspect it. What I saw before the hurricane, they'd all cleared out, they hadn't been there for days, is crap left in the row where it's gonna wash, like propane tanks, things like that. Hazardous pails of stuff left on equipment, vests left, gloves left, ladders left, and swinging in the breeze, I saw posts for silt fence and super silt fences. That's not somebody doing their job. We have slopes over 30%. Did they put any jute mats down on us? No. They did it on Paris Mountain, but nothing on Brush Mountain, nothing. And we have steep slopes into creeks. We have runoff going off the row onto private property every single time. Your measures don't work. This never should have been approved. I live near Slusher's Chapel Cave. Will Orndorff comes to my house, to the cave, multiple times. I am going to read you an article, things from an article that he wrote on July 4th. Nothing's changed. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not going to violate his confidence, but nothing's changed. This is the recorder. This is Parsons Springs or Bottom Spring. Their dye tracing had done, they knew there was a problem with this before they even started this project. Knew it. Will Orndorff, the DCR National Heritage Program's Karst Protection Coordinator, reported to the Cave Board that since May 18th, there have been at least 10 failures of approved erosion and sediment control plans where there was a release of sediment from the project work area and discharge to and towards sinkholes. A nearby spring with a watershed crossed by the pipeline has turned muddy at least 3 times since construction began, and according to local residents, has no history of sedimentation. Guess what? Now it's up to 11. Nothing's changed. Standard measures within the approved plans were not effective, Orndorff said. Causes included steep slope topography from 20 to 30%, inadequate sediment and erosion control plans developed by MVP's contractors and approved by Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. These erosion and sediment control plans acknowledged but did not account for karst features, which had been extensively and accurately documented by MVP in its karst hazard assessment. The response by MVP was fast characterization but slow repair. However, coordination between DCR and DEQ has been limited since construction began, and Orndorff repeated there has been no direct coordination between FERC and DCR since construction began. Orndorff said Draper Aiden Associates did a good job of identifying the karst features along the route in the karst hazard assessment and in providing guidance for their protection in the karst mitigation plan. However, the erosion and sediment control plans developed by consulting and engineering firm Tetra Tech failed to incorporate the karst hazard assessment into their engineering plans.
3 minutes are up. Would you wrap it up, please?
Please think about what I've said. I have no other thing to say other than this project should never have been approved.
My name is Kirk Bowers. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I work with the Sierra Club. I'm a retired engineer. I'm here to give you a pictorial report of the Mountain Valley Watch efforts and photos from recent problems that we've observed on the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And all of the pictures shown in this report have occurred since your meeting on August the 21st. And we have recorded 41 incidents of erosion problems in the last 28 days. The majority of incidents reported, including sediment flowing into streams, downstream properties due to inability of erosion control devices to adequately detain sediment on site. Most of the areas observed are repeat problem areas, and primarily a lot of this is because of lack of maintenance. If you'll turn to the very last sheet in the pictures I sent you, I think that particular photo really shows the extent of the problems. If you look at it carefully, you can see sediment flowing off the right-of-way into what looks like a drainage channel. And the silt fences failed. They tried to put in a straw bale erosion device, but, that's been overwhelmed. If you go back and look through the pictures, and I've got over 1,000 of these pictures that were taken here in the last week alone. The problem is, and it's been an ongoing problem for many years, and it's not your fault, but the General Assembly did not give you all the budget to provide adequate staff to be able to inspect sites like this. It's too large a site, and there's too many miles. You have one inspector officially for 30 miles of a spread, and they just can't get out and look at the sites. And so MVP is way behind on their maintenance. They can't do it. They laid off 3,000 workers, so they can't get out and do the ENS maintenance that's needed. When FERC shut them down, they laid off 3,000 people, and they can't get those back in just a couple of days. So when they said they were going to go back out and do the ENS stabilization before the hurricane, they couldn't do it because they didn't have the workers out there. All they've got is skeleton crews now out on the sites. If you look at the third sheet here, you can see that there's runoff flowing directly into the Blackwater River. And then finally, I need to just address one issue on the DMME standards that I referenced on August the 21st. If you go up to Stafford County, where I reviewed many plans for that county, you'll find a rock quarry where they have an outlet protection structure that was stipulated by DMME, and that's what I was specifically referencing in my comments. Thank you all for listening today, and the only last question I have to ask you is please reconsider reviewing the erosion plans again because they're not adequate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm a lifelong citizen of the Benton Mountain community, and it's been a long 4 years that we've been dealing with the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and now that destruction is imminent, I have seen little to nothing that we, the citizens, have been listened to by the DEQ as they've rolled over for this out-of-state corporation. Even last week with Hurricane Florence coming through, I watched the MVP freely working, doing construction, welding, digging, in the driving rain through the night. And they put down straw. I guess that was the best they could do. Also, the DEQ's office the DEQ's local regional office was closed on 9/17, one of the most rainiest days. I guess that was convenient. What the hell's that about? So I guess this is going to be, well, actually, one more thing I want to add to that too is if they're having a hard time with the DEQ representatives coming and meeting with us, all of us on the mountain would love to meet these people. We've been dying to meet these people. One of the problems is that once we start trying to get out there and looking on public property, on roadways, we get hassled by MVP security. That sucks, especially when it's on property that's been in your family for generations. So yeah, they really try to let us limit what we can do, and we can talk to the DEQ agents. So this is how it's going to be, I guess, as the MVP is approaching the steep slopes of Poor Mountain, rushing the construction and blasting their way through the perched aquifer, which, by the way, I remember that was an issue last time at the meeting. I'd like to hear what the follow-up with that was. And they're going up Poor Mountain and directly above the Spring Hollow Reservoir, which is yet another place that some very serious damage will happen. The MVP is obviously rushing this process with very little oversight. I fully believe that the members of the State Water Control Board have good intentions. I mean, that's why we're here. I mean, yeah. So I'm asking and imploring that you schedule a meeting about the construction and failing erosion and sediment control measures, which are happening right now as we speak. We need a real meeting where we, as citizens, can have real dialogue with the board where we can address these documented issues in more than just a 3-minute soundbite. The DEQ may think that by obfuscating this bureaucratic process, that we will gradually go away as this unneeded, invasive, and destructive pipeline is built, but they are wrong. The folks on Benton Mountain are united. We are not activists, unlike what maybe some of the propaganda out there might say. We're the citizens. We're the people that live there, and we will continue to live there. We are the ones who are watching and documenting as our property, farms, fields, creeks, springs, and wells are being blasted, bulldozed, and poisoned. And we are going to continue doing that for maybe generations. We will be coming up here and talking to you folks, or the other people, and we look forward to be talking to the people that will be sitting in your chair when you're no longer sitting there.
My name is Joan Wages, and I live in Roanoke, Virginia. And I'm a witness to this destruction that's been going on along the path of the Mountain Valley Pipeline in Franklin County, Montgomery County, and Roanoke County up in Bent Mountain. I saw the runoff that Kurt spoke about that went directly into the Blackwater River from one of the MVP sites. It was horrid, shocking. I just want to share a few of my reflections. I've been taking lots of pictures, and I'm tired of taking pictures of the destruction. Our hearts feel the truth. Our bones know the truth. Our breath breathes the truth. The dangerous, heartbreaking, uncomfortable truth. It's not okay. It's not going to be okay. It won't ever be okay if we keep going this way. Most of us, including me, don't like to break the rules. I preferred a pat on the head, a gold star of approval, but the lines in the sand have been drawn across our doorsteps, our mothers, our fathers' doorsteps, our sisters, our brothers, our neighbors' doorsteps. Will we act in their best interest and ours as well? We cannot pretend that what happens to them is not going to happen to us. We cannot pretend that everything is fine, that our democracy is not failing, that corporations are not ruling instead of human beings. We cannot pretend that our lawmakers have not ceased listening to the people. We cannot pretend that the justice system is just, that our ecosystem isn't dying, and that environmental racism is not real. We cannot pretend that our sources of clear water are not being destroyed, of clean water that are not being destroyed. That's why I take the pictures. That's why I give them to the Mountain Valley Watch, so they can report them, so that we know that citizens will be heard. What I would like to ask today of you is to consider the truths that are presented to you from my brothers and sisters, my neighbors, who are struggling to save their farms, their livelihoods, their water sources, their very lives. I'm asking you to do quite a difficult thing. I'm asking you to tap into your courage, to bolt from the line, the well-trodden path. Leap to the side. The people in our communities need you. You are our neighbors. You are our peers. We belong to each other. When one of us is hurting and suffering, we all suffer. Follow your conscience. Revoke the permits. There is no reasonable assurance. We all know it in our bones, deep in our bones. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, the time is always right to do what is right. I ask you to do what is right. That's all I ask.
I want you to see how many water bodies would be crossed by this pipeline. Anybody want to help me hold these? This is how many. I am so tired of this. I am so sick of being here in these meeting rooms for 4 years, telling you what's being done to the communities that I work with, that I live in. Yesterday, I was at Kathy Chandler's property after she left. She had to pick up her daughter. We never know what's going to happen when we're up here, when we're 3 hours away from home. I had security tell me they were with the Sierra Club. I had them ask me for permits because I was telling them we wanted to make sure that what they were doing was permitted. We didn't even have a DEQ inspector on the ground. We had a facsimile. This is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. You have the power to revoke these permits, all of these water bodies. These water bodies from all the way up in Mobley, West Virginia, all the way to Pennsylvania, and now they're trying to go into North Carolina, and Dominion's bought a share. So how much is it gonna take? How much do we owe you? Really? Can we buy your votes like the industry has? Because I know a lot of people who would pony up at this point because this is the drinking water for most of these communities. You talk to me about regulations. This is life. These are people's lives. Have you seen the explosions? Have you seen the leaks in Pennsylvania? How many aquifers have been punctured? I know of one. I know of a perched aquifer and an upland wetland right next to the Blue Ridge Parkway that will never recover. We can't fix that. We can't mitigate it. You can stop further damage. These people know more than the DEQ is telling you. Listen. Have a special meeting. Stop construction until you've had it. Revoke the permits. It's not acceptable anymore. I don't have the science. I don't have politics. I don't have anything left to do but pray for you, for these communities, for you to do the right thing. I've been doing this for years. And I've showed up with facts, and I've showed up with people I care about. And I'm done. I'm tired of it. It's up to you. You are citizens of this Commonwealth. Please, please, one more chance. Please do the right thing.
I'm Swami Dayananda from Yogaville, a monastic living there. It is heartbreaking to hear the stories of what is happening already for the people along MVP, especially Bent Mountain. I am sure it must touch your heart because even forgetting that you are the water board who approved this water permit. As a human being, I believe we will be deeply concerned. Please, these people are beautiful, normal people. Why are they so angry? Why are they crying? Literally, they are crying for your help. I feel that, and because also I come from Union Hill and Yogaville community. I was just at the Union Hill meeting with the Dominion liaison there. Marie Rose stood up. She's an African-American woman with a cane. She will not be able to come and speak with you, but she said, I'm not for this compressor station in my right, but I want to be able to drink my water if it's going to come. I want Dominion to guarantee that my and my neighbor's water will be drinkable when it is here, if it's going to come. And I do not want it to come. Now, I'm here to share with you many of Union Hill, and it is true with Yogaville as well. We have a quarter-mile away, James River. The pipeline is scheduled to come underneath and then go right through. And it really risks our aquifer of our place and entire Buckingham. So we just had a meeting with air permit group. DEQ members said, and we were so grateful, DEQ exists to protect Virginia citizens' environment and health. And they meant it. And I believe that DEQ people do want to do that and are trying to do that very best. Unfortunately, sometimes the law does not allow, you to do what you would want to do out of your love, compassion, knowledge of what is really happening. So I ask to please hear these words of pain. They are angry because they are deeply frustrated. There's nowhere to go for us but to you as an individual human being. Love and compassion and knowing what really is happening must touch your heart and express itself in your decision. It is going to touch our life. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you, and kindly consider all of our pleas to you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heidi Bertu, I'm with Friends of Buckingham, and I'd like to give my time to, Roberta Bondurant.
You have full and stuff on the public forum. It's 3 minutes a person and that's it.
That's too bad.
Thank you.
Adapt, adjust, accommodate. That's one of our key tenets in the yoga world. I will speak. I'm not I'm not prepared to speak, but I will hopefully speak for the people of the Mountain Valley pipeline impacted peoples, since they are obviously most directly and immediately impacted. We just spent 3 hours with the air permit folks, and I found that fruitful. Unlike, it seems, most of the meetings that we've had with the water board or the DEQ water department, and I stand here and I look at you all, and I see, looking into your eyes, I see human beings here, and surely this must grieve you, what you see, this spectacle before you. These people in extreme pain. And I heard their invitations for you to please come and see. Through this 4 years of fighting these monsters, we have found that showing up really makes a huge difference. Reading about it, watching it on television, hearing it on the radio doesn't compare to showing up and seeing it and really feeling what is going on out there. It's important to show up. Magic happens when you do that. I implore you to please go out and see what happens. See what are the results of your decisions. We are all downstream. You are downstream. This impacts the drinking water of Richmond, of DC. We see the water wars going on all around the world. Why do we allow that to happen here? Please use your powers to revoke this permit. I have any more time?
I don't have to say that.
Okay. I'm looking forward to hearing from the other folks here. Maybe I'll say a little bit more. We live in the Piedmont, and of course, we dodged the bullet of Florence, but every time there's a heavy rain, we see the inadequacy of our highways that are not properly taken care of, and then we talk about a 42-inch high-pressure compressed fracked gas pipeline running through our communities, and
there's no adequate way to protect ourselves from this. We feel that if you do come and do the stream-by-stream analysis, you will clearly see that. I live a mile downstream from the crossing of the James River, and I'm not looking forward to seeing that cross the river. Thank you.
I'm here from Radford, Virginia. I've also done quite a bit of field work over this last year on the Mountain Valley Pipeline route, many of the areas in Bent Mountain, from Giles, Montgomery County, Franklin County, and Roanoke County. I echo all of what has already been shared. We have no trust in DEQ at this point because we make calls, we don't get response. 3 hours later, someone shows up, they look at the hill, they watch the machinery, they watch no guards. I think the gentleman's name was Lincoln Hoker that met me on site in Franklin County, and they tell me they're going to issue a report, and then they never do. And when I call to find out, well, where is the report that I asked for, the response I get from John McCutcheon of the DEQ office in Roanoke, and I received a voicemail from him again with the same response last Thursday on the 13th that said, the reason why I cannot locate some of these reports is because they are not available to the public. These reports are kept in places that are only available to us. And so my question is, if we are not able to see them, are you? If we as the public cannot access the information that we need to continue to do the job of DEQ, which they did send out the meme, I saw it. I was also very offended by that. So I would like to ask for you to direct the DEQ to post every single inspection report that they have obtained on any of these stretches in a public way that we can access them so that we can cross-check them with the notes that we have made on these sites almost every single day of this year. The second thing I want to know, and this applies to all of the boards, why is it the practice of the Virginia Department of Environment and Quality to hold a public hearing of concerns on matters such as these pipelines and compressor stations, issue a notice that you're going to hold a public hearing and hear the concerns, and then when we arrive, after driving hours and hours, we arrive to see 3 DEQ officials on stage with 1 board member from the board that is supposed to be hearing the concerns of the citizen. I've never understood why this is the practice. So I would like to ask you as a board if you can find a way to make a recommendation to the DEQ that they change this practice, that you change this policy. If we are notified that there will be a public hearing and we drive hours and hours because we do not trust the DEQ, and it is with a basis, it is with a foundation. We are coming to talk to you. We are coming to share our concerns with you as a board because we don't believe, and we have documentation, that what we report to them does not make its way to you. So we want you to hear our concerns, and we do not want to drive hours and hours and show up and have 3 DEQ officials on the stage and 1 board member on the stage. It's not why we're here. And the third thing that I would just like to state, and this is personal, and that is I want to let Luann Wallace know that I will contact the governor and I will ask for her position on this board to be rescinded because you have done nothing to respond to the members that you represent. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a time there where we had about 3-4 months in which we didn't get to talk to our State Water Control Board. So the more frequent we can have these meetings, the better, more transparent. We can have a public discussion between the public and the State Water Control Board, so thank you for that. Earlier you heard from Ms. Davenport talking specifically about open trenches, and that's been an ongoing issue with this pipeline. But we have to consider that this permit was specially written, unlike any other construction project, to have more linear feet of open trench. right? And that's one of the issues that we keep running into. The conditions of the permit keep failing us. There's no assurance in this permit, and the amount of linear feet that we're running into right now with rain, we're having blowouts. We just had a blowout, mid-September. It was handed me down from members of Benton Mountain. Right here, a hydrologist, Pam Dodge, saying 85% erosion rate on this hill, a blowout, right? And this is unlike, we heard from Ben Leach last August 21st, and saying that a majority, quote, let me just quote him real quick here. Ben Leach, are you here? Right here, okay. ENS measures are sized to 2-year 24-hour storm swells, and most of the rain events that we have seen, so Ben Leach is referring to the DEQ, as of today are exceeding 2-year 24-hour storm events, right? What you have in front of you is a 4-year history that was put together by Coles Terry on that, looking at both cited from NOAA and Weather Underground of all of the dates that it rained in 2018. The storm swell up on top of Benton Mountain is just over 3 feet. That's a 24-hour period, and it hasn't rained that much one time in 2018. Right? So he's getting up here on August 21st, presenting you with a summarized report on how much it's rained, saying a majority of the violations and illegal discharges from the Mountain Valley Pipeline have occurred because it's past the 24-hour 2-year storm swell, right? When we ask, where's your data? We get a reply from DEQ saying, we watch the news, right? A 2-year 24-hour storm swell, I turn on the news, I don't hear them reporting on that sort of data, right? This is another kind of longer history of why we can't trust a summarized report from DEQ that is so absurdly understaffed at this matter and this size project to report back to our board, right? This comes back on the citizens time and time again that they're just not doing their job. So let's also, if you could turn to the last page on that rain rate, look at September 9th, right? September 9th, it rained less than a ½ inch in a 24-hour period. I have 258 images from violation sites that citizens reported that day, right? So this is a day that they're saying a majority of our violations that we're reporting, right, don't fall within the limits, that somehow, MVP has been excused, right? I just want to make one more thing. MVP, we'd like to see the SWPP requirements, the SWIFT reports. We'd like to see those public, much like you made Dominion produce coal ash discharges in the water. We want to see those public. So those are reports. The MVP has to keep SWPP documents updated, make notations, and required to document that they are making ES inspections once every 4 days, right? And we still haven't seen that. We'd like to see that because we'd like to see if it coordinates with what we're seeing on the ground, and we think the public has the right to see if they're actually making these requirements, if they're keeping documentation, and so we can, present you again with even more material in order to revoke these permits.
I believe your time is up.
For a formal hearing, we'd really love a formal hearing to reconsider the revocation of these permits, to consider the revocation of these permits. We have no assurance that both DEQ or these permits are going to protect our water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members could do actually to go out and look at, do a site visit and look at Bent Mountain. Is that something would we arrange it with staff, or how would we do that?
If you want to go out, you just get with DEQ and do it. Okay?
You can go out on your own dime anytime you want to. It's just a question, if the whole board was to go, it would require that it would have to be a meeting and have to be noticed and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I didn't ask about having the entire board, because I realized that if the entire board goes, it has to be a public meeting, and the entire public would attend, and if you're trying to access the right-of-way, there's not room for the entire public.
Okay.
So I was asking for myself, if I wanted to see a location, would I arrange that with staff? Would that be okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
The meeting for September 20th is closed.